All right, welcome to Witchpolice Radio. I'm on the internet, as always, and I'm talking to a member of a band who hasn't been on the show before. And I get the impression that you guys are actually fairly new.
Yes, yeah, that's right. We had our first album drop just early December of
Yeah,
2020, so only a month. And then before that, like we've had been kind of cooking away in the kitchen for about year and a half or so.
okay.
So very new, and also it's been a new experience being a new band in a pandemic as
I
well.
believe it. Yeah, I actually have a lot of questions for you about that. But I think before we get started, if you want to just introduce yourself and then and the band as well, because I think a lot of people listening, you guys might be new to them as well. So yeah, just a bit of background, I guess, on where you're coming from.
Yeah, so it's great to meet you. My name's Chris Zelke. I'm the lead singer and rhythm guitar player for a band called Lugosi. We have three other guys in the band too. So Jordan Vandal, who does a lot of bass guitar, keys, acoustic guitar, and drums. We
Okay,
have Brendan Funk, who plays lead guitar, and then Eric Strum, who plays drums and bass. So it's the roles aren't very much set in who plays what. It's just kind of where the expertise lies for the song. So hence
cool.
all the titles with the names.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's cool. I like bands like that where it kind of shifts a bit depending on the song, right? So yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, like you were saying, I mean, the pandemic is such a weird time to basically really launch launch a band. So what has that been like for you? Because I mean, your record came out, right in the peak of all this, and
That's right.
you don't have an opportunity to tour, you don't have an opportunity to play shows, play a release show, really do anything other than I guess just get the word out online. So what's the experience been?
It's been really interesting. Like I said, like we had been when we started writing songs, it was just Jordan and myself, kind of coming from longtime members of the I guess music community in the city, but coming together, starting this project, having songs that just kind of meshed very well. And actually, this is Jordan right
It
now
looks like he
joining
just showed up.
us.
Yeah, so we'll
Yeah,
yeah, we'll keep talking. Well, when he
yeah.
pops up, we'll yeah.
Yeah, so when we started, this was obviously before COVID hit or before we knew what that was going to be all about. So
Yeah,
it was, I guess, starting at a place where, um, having started bands before, it's just like, oh, we're going to record this, we're going to release it this way, and I can't wait to play a show, get like our friends and new people out, and it's going to be so awesome.
yeah.
And then COVID strikes. Hey, man.
Hey, well,
Uh,
maybe that's a good place to pause, and then we can introduce the newest person to join the conversation here. How's it going?
Hey, good man. How are you?
Not bad, not bad. So we started recording this already, but I think maybe this is a good time to introduce you. I mean, now that you're here and what you do in the band, and we were just basically talking about how the pandemic has affected things, especially as a relatively new band, and you're sort of making your big, by putting out an album and just sort of introducing yourselves to the local community during the middle of a time when no one can play shows and no one can really do anything.
Yeah, it's really weird. I'm sure as Chris was talking about. I'm Jordan, so sorry that I'm late, but
It's all good.
I'm
All
here.
good.
So I do a lot of stuff in this band. We kind of jump around as far as what we play. So in the record that we have, Chris and I pretty much have written and recorded everything here. So did drums and bass and keys and guitar, and live we do a very similar thing where we kind of switch off and rotate. So
Okay.
it's fun in that way too. I think for me, when Chris and I were talking about what we wanted to do as a new band, part of what I wanted to do was to challenge myself musically and just play lots of stuff. And
Okay.
that's what we've been doing here. So it's been fun.
Well, that's maybe a good segue into the question that everyone hates answering, and I kind of hate asking. But how do you define what it is you do? I saw like your bio is sort of vague. I mean, in terms of putting a name to the genre, and that might be on purpose because obviously we're in this weird era where there's so many subgenres and extra labels and different definitions of music that a lot of people just try to avoid it. But because people need to be able to file you away somewhere in their brain, what's the best kind of quick answer you have if someone says, what kind of music do you play?
I would say dark indie alternative,
Okay.
without getting too subgenre, because I had that feeling as well when we started recording songs. It was more so just like, what don't we hear out there? What would we like to hear? And in terms of labeling what we sound like, that's kind of come full circle to bite us in the butt. But it's just having that kind of dark themed songs, In some songs it's a little country western.
Right.
So it's all about the mood of the song, what it is we're trying to sing about, and just kind of what feeling we want to convey.
Okay. Is that the
Yeah.
same definition you'd come up with, Jordan?
Similar. It's weird when Chris would write songs when we were kind of new and sharing songs back and forth, and he would send me it, and I would just like listen to it. And I'd be like, "What the fuck really is this? Like, how would you classify it?" So I don't know. Yeah, like I would say it's certainly very beat driven and dark driven. We try to like have kind of a mood for a song, not always a genre for a song.
Right.
And so we kind of let that lead us through it.
Well, maybe a better way to ask the question, I don't want to dwell on this too much because I know it sucks and no one likes it, defining themselves, but are there artists that you guys, maybe whether it's the two of you or the whole band, that you all sort of agree on, whether it's a direct influence or not, like just in terms of trying to place you? Because I've heard it and I'm not sure what to call it either. So
I would say a band that we've been compared to is Turnover.
Okay.
So just very like guitar, like clean kind of riff driven indie. Lord Huron. So just very slow, ambient, just kind of thematic songs.
Right.
Is that other?
And I think it will change too, depending on like who writes the song. Like I think if Chris writes the song, it'll feel like that. Before I met Chris, I didn't really know who Turnover was, but certainly listening to them, I can kind of see where he pulls some of that inspiration from.
Okay.
And like for myself, I kind of look towards stuff that I haven't done and I want to do. So I do lots of like electric drums that like is very Royal Canoe inspired for me.
Sure, yeah.
And stuff like that I can like really just experiment with.
Well, speaking of Royal Canoe, I mean, I'm assuming that's one of the bands that you would have come up listening to in the local music scene. But I always try to place people because over the course of doing this show, I've talked to people who are like 18 to 70, right? So there's just this massive range, and so I have my own experiences in the local music scene and my own kind of landmark times and places and events and bands. But I'm always curious, kind of what other people sort of point to as this is a local band that got you into wanting to play music, or this is a local band that you used to see all the time before starting your own project. Do you guys have kind of favorites from when you were younger that maybe helped springboard you into what you're doing now?
That's a great question. I'm not so much like an artist guy, but just songs. I mean, even over the course of my music career, I think my interests have changed so much. Like if I think about when I started to play in bands, like it was like Slayer,
Sure,
Cannibal Corpse, and then kind of got into In Flames, and then from there just like branched out into more like melodic metal, but then also I don't know, like pop. Like last week I spun the new Miley Cyrus, like I said, like Turnover. It's just kind of the Faye Webster, which is a great artist as well. It's like prominent in the indie scene in the States. So it's just very like, if there's a song that just grabs me, I've kind of it just changes. I feel like there's like a good beat in a lot of songs, and it always I just find myself getting grabbed by a little bit of everything.
Okay.
Yeah, as far as like local bands go, as I just kind of said, Royal Canoe, and there are certainly some parts in the record that, especially drum wise, where they do so much interesting things rhythmatically, and I would think about that kind of stuff, and even some songs we have 2 drum tracks going, very comparable to how they would have like a real drum kit, panned right, and then more of a trick drum kit panned left. And I, certain songs have certain feels too. So like lots of the Boniface record I really like, and there's a song on our record called "Why Do You Think of Me Now" that like it's super just like pop driven and like very straightforward like that. So just trying to like immerse myself in music that I maybe wouldn't have listened to previously, coming from a background, as Chris was saying, that was more like very hard rock driven. Just trying to kind of leave that a little bit and open up some new doors.
Cool. Well, one of the things I noticed, again, you guys being relatively new to as this band, looking on your social media, your Instagram page, it's very well designed. Like one of the things that happens, I think, in this kind of day and age we're in, is that a lot of bands, they can write great songs, they have the creative part down, but then the marketing themselves part is they just completely have no idea what to do. And just looking at your images and your videos and things, looks like you guys have that part sorted out. At least there's an image that the band has. How important was kind of developing that to you guys when it came to sort of putting this record out and getting some attention?
That's a great question. I feel like in the past, having been very satisfied with the music, the songs, having that all on lockdown, and it's been a thing that I've done wrong in the past, and I don't get why. But like when I check out a new artist, the first thing I'll do is like, do they have music videos? What do they look like?
Yeah.
And I find like that's oftentimes like half of the selling point to any band is like, yes, you will sound good, but I feel like there's so many talented people out there. How are you gonna market yourself and poke your head up above the crowd?
Right.
So not so much saying that we're doing that, but I think you just got to think of all aspects. Like you can't have a complete album without good artwork. And for me, just like the image, the logo, and then also what we're going to release the music with, like in the pandemic as well. We originally were just going to be like, hey, we're going to have a show. It's going to be awesome. We're going to get some bands. It's going to be fun. But trying to think on our feet, it's like, how are we going to supplement that? So we teamed up with one of our local filmographer friends, James Dixon.
Okay.
So he makes a lot of film which celebrates Manitoba, celebrates rural Manitoba, celebrates different aspects of the city through his unique eye. And he was stoked on the idea when I showed him our music to collaborate. So on YouTube, we have this video piece, because in a pandemic, we weren't able to get together and film music videos. So it's like having some visual aspect where we get to promote each other was important. But then again, just like kind of turning back to that, how do you market yourself, what it is that you bring forth aside from the music? That's kind of part of it too.
Well, you mentioned one of the things you mentioned right at the beginning of that whole little bit there was about you want to know what the band looks like, and I thought that was very interesting. So what are you looking for? Like what about a band's appearance, I guess, would make you think this is something I want to check out? Because I think that probably differs for every person, right? But I've never actually thought about it. I know I always look at the pictures of the band, but it never really occurs to me to I mean, I joked when I talked to you guys first, like, oh, you look like you're dressed like the 70s or something. but so I noticed it, right? I definitely noticed it. But what are you looking for? I mean, if you're picking up a record by someone you've never heard before and you see their photos, what is it that appeals to you about the way they look that will make it kind of, oh, this will probably be good?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for me, I have an overactive mind. If I just hear music, I'm going to, in my own head, write what they look like, or like
sure.
what it is that they do. I just feel like it's that picture's worth 1,000 words. And it's just, I start thinking of things like it's the aspect of I want to know what they look like. Show me a video of them jamming in a space so that I get to enjoy that. For me, it just enriches, like the tunes could be great, but that video aspect, that image aspect will bring it like sevenfold from there.
And I don't know if I've ever even like thought of it in my conscious mind, but like certainly I think we're all attracted to different things. Like, you think of like iconic bands that have done, obviously a lot of stuff, like, the Beatles, for example, in their classic suits on TV, right? There's just some symmetry to it that even if you're not thinking about it, you're just attracted to it. And so in this group, Chris is fully an artist, not just musically, but, aesthetically too. He has put so much time into thinking about, the photo shoot outfits and how we should have some synchronicity there. And even like in the videos, he's created all the graphics for the videos. And when we were writing this album, it was a big thought of ours and in the forefront of what we were doing, to try and really create some art and like a feel and a look for it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, that makes sense. I mean, as you guys are talking, I'm thinking about this more and more. And I mean, I'm just thinking of a band like the Ramones, for example. Like, you look at the Ramones and you know exactly what they sound like. You don't have to have heard a single note, and you can tell. And I don't know if that's just because,
leather.
It's just, so it has that look for sure. So that is a thing. And it's also interesting too that, we're in an era where most people aren't looking at things like liner notes, and they're not looking at album covers and all that stuff, because it's all just sitting in the cloud and randomly appearing on their in their headphones, right? So it's interesting that, in this weird dystopian future where people don't listen to records anymore, you guys are doing the work of actually like putting together, a proper record in the sense of having promo shots and having a logo and having attention paid to detail on the design and stuff. So it's cool.
I guess
Yeah,
it's
you go back to
too,
basics sometimes.
Yeah.
Totally, yeah. And I guess like it's all things, when I think about it that way, it's things that I would want to see from a band. So
Totally.
It's like if we're gonna start a new group, we should be doing that ourselves too. It's like have all those things thought out. And yeah, like I have a graphic design background, so it's like why wouldn't we do it?
Yeah, that helps, right?
Yeah, totally. So
Yeah.
it kind of worked. And then have friends who can shoot photography well and have a good eye. So it's just like, let's just get a bunch of artists together and then beef this thing up.
Yeah. Well, it's a good idea. If you have those resources, of course, like you should totally use them. Yeah. What's the? I obviously, again, we're in the pandemic. I don't need to keep reiterating that, but you can't play shows. You can't do any of this stuff. So, what has the reaction been to the record, due to the fact that people can't actually see you to play it live or can't see you, in person to tell you what they think of it?
It's so far a lot of positive responses, all the private messages, all the comments, all the likes, all the traction we've gotten so far has been very positive, which is, it's always nervous when you're spending like a year plus crafting these songs, planning things out. There's a lot of anxiety that comes with it, where it's just like at the end of the day, like the guys and me, we all like it and it sounds awesome, but we want people to feel, what we put into it, both from how it sounds and how the lyrics are. So it's definitely nerve wracking, but it's been great so far, and it's definitely been a challenge to keep that momentum going. It's being said, like we can't play shows, so we're trying to really think of how do we keep putting content out there, because we're still writing songs, we're still kind of rolling along at top speed. So it's been difficult to keep it going, but so far it's been great.
Cool. Well, that maybe leads into another question too, is, obviously no one knows how long this pandemic is going to last for. Even if it ends relatively soon, is there a chance that by the time you can actually play a release show properly for this record, that these songs are going to feel old? Like, is there any danger of you guys have already kind of, in your heads moved on past this stuff, and you kind of have to play it then because people are wanting to hear the record on stage?
Well, it's kind of funny because lots of these songs, when we had written them, we actually wrote them like lots of times like in studios. So we would have an idea, because it was just Chris and I at the top of it, and so we would have Chris would have a riff, and we would just like track it in, and we'd add to it, and we would create these songs lots of times in studio. So when we actually started jamming with the band, it was almost like learning these songs again, or learning them for the first time, really. And that really just kind of got going for us mostly in the fall. And then everything's kind of grinded to a quick halt. So as much as we've been working on them for a while, jamming them is a whole different atmosphere. Like it feels really good. So I'm so stoked to like get on a stage and like play this and to feel it live. And I don't think it's going to feel old or mundane for us at all.
That's good. It's a good thing. Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a great point, though. It's just like man, I sure hope we can play some sort of show.
Yeah, eventually.
It's like the aspect of like releasing a new album and then not being able to play it until it's old. Oh, I hope not.
Yeah.
I think prior to even having... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say it'll be new to audiences anyway, right? Because you haven't had a chance to play this you haven't had a chance to play live in however long it's been now, right? For everyone, so...
Yeah, exactly. It'll be good to get our feet wet again. And I think prior to even playing a show in real life, like we're going to do some live videos and stuff like that once we can at least have 5 people in the space together. So
yeah, sure.
That'll be fun.
Did the songs, how have the songs changed from, just the two of you guys doing it in the studio to now the expanded version of the band? Have the other members added, some of their own parts to the songs, or have they stayed pretty much the same as they were when you initially recorded them?
I think lots of it is studio, but they certainly have their own feel. So they've been adding it to it. And as well as that, just getting the instrumentation correctly, just because, for lots of stuff we write has so many parts. And so, we got to figure out who's going to play what and when. Yeah. And so I think it stayed very much to the record version of it with a little bit of flavor here and there.
Okay.
I think it's something that grew too. Like I'm just thinking of conception of a few of the songs. It's having different key layers and synth layers, it turned into these songs where at first it was Jordan and I, we really just appreciated these songs, and then kind of felt it out. Then it got to a point where it's just like, well, A, we should turn this into a band, but B, there's so many parts we almost need a band in that same respect. So then getting Eric and Bren, who like would totally appreciate the songs and add to them as well, was key. So cool. Then bringing them on, and then to then rehearse those songs, it just like things just naturally evolve when you have four artists in a room kind of chipping away at a song.
Do you think this will obviously this is off in the future, but you know, when you guys do a follow-up to this eventually, are you hoping to have everyone involved in the kind of creative process with that, or do you like the way that it works out so far?
No, I think we'll definitely build it off it. So we had most of the album written. We did one song on this record as a group. It's called Bittersweet, and that's one that we actually all wrote together as a band. And that was the last song we wrote, last song we recorded for the record to get Eric and Brent in it. But yeah, definitely in the future we'll be writing together, and I think it's going to add a whole nother layer to future records too, where it's just not Chris and I. There's going to be their tastes and their feel in it for sure.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Yeah, I mean it's with something like this where it's, you know, two people working on it and you're doing everything yourselves. Were there any issues where, you know, so you were worried that something wouldn't be playable live? In terms of just complexity or the amount of instruments you need or the type of instruments you need?
To make it happen live was certainly a question that Chris and I were back and forth, like how are we going to do this? So it's a band that is different for both of us because we've always been like a rock band, you know, 2 guitars, bass, drums, vocals, right? Very simple. Where this is certainly a whole different feel. So we have in-ears that we're working with live because, you know, we're playing to lots of VSTs and stuff that we wouldn't have in other bands. And even vocally, you know, there's Chris and I doing so much vocals, but we have so many other layers to it too. So it was about figuring out how we could do this. And that was part of the fun almost for me, at least in some of this, was technically it is very, very hard. And it's kind of pushing yourself into new ways, not just musically, but like just technically, how are we going to patch this through? How are we going to take this to a live scenario and actually do it and have it sound good? So I think we're at a point now where we were ready for that, and then everything got shut down, and so we couldn't actually, you know, debut it. But we're ready once that comes.
Cool. So it works. Everything translates to live. You've been able to figure out like the solutions to those problems.
Totally.
Awesome.
Yeah, I feel like even when we wrote them, it's just like we write for a 4-piece, which is what we have, but it's just those few additions, which is just like, is there going to be some sort of backing track? And I think that's what we've experimented with, where it's just like, although it's light, it's still at least for phase one for live shows, like probably have some stuff back, but for the most part, we've figured out a way to translate it live where it's still honest, which is
organic.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's interesting you mentioned honest and organic, because this has come up a lot on this show over the years, whether I'm talking to a rapper or a country singer or a rock band, whatever. I feel like Manitoba audiences, Winnipeg audiences have a very strong bullshit detector, and people can tell if you're basically phoning it in, right? And so that idea of being genuine and being honest and kind of portraying your music, you know, with some kind of soul, whether not in terms of the genre, but in terms of just the way you present it, it seems to be super important, and maybe more here in this city for whatever reason than other places. And I think Winnipeg audiences just, they want to see someone actually giving a shit about what they're doing, whatever that is, right? So
that's a great point, and I think it starts with any artist themselves. It's just like, don't release bullshit, don't expect people to come and pay cash and hear your crap if you can't give them something for it.
Definitely.
So I think we've all been to shows like that where we've seen it. So,
or just been in bands that, you know,
that's true.
you'll write some songs that just, you know, that's, you know, you're trying to write for someone else, you're trying to write for, you know, just not for yourself, and that's very easily to detect when people listen to it.
For sure. So if people are hearing about you for the first time on this show, and I imagine there will be a lot of people because again, like you're relatively new as a band. What's the best way to find out more information about what you're up to and to hear the music that's out now?
So the best way to keep in touch with what we're doing day to day, that'll be our Instagram. So it's Instagram lugosi.band. If you want to support us more directly, we have our Bandcamp. That's linked on our link tree on our Instagram. So there you'll have our record for purchase or for stream. And then from there, we're on Apple Music. Basically, anywhere that streams music, you can find us. But those two, the Instagram and the Bandcamp, will be the main ways to catch us.
Right on. And before I let you go, the band name, are you just big Dracula fans or something? Like what is the name come from?
I love it. So yeah, Lugosi. I just felt once we started to have enough of our songs where I could start to see a theme emerge. It's dark, and that kind of sums up what we write about lyrically and our theme as well. So I just felt it was that one word, and it just seemed to click.
Cool.
But I am a fan of the Golden Age, or my DVD collection from 10 years ago is longer than this room.
Right on.
Yeah.
Cool.